Remember all those months I spent this past summer getting our engine bed, and this is where our electric motor sits under our owner's berth. All the summer trying to smooth out everything in here, get it primed. Well, now I get to work on much more exciting stages because while the weather is still warm, we're kind of creeping into November. We still have some days that are going to be in the mid-60s coming up, so we want to take advantage of them to glass. And one of the things that we do need to glass is the thru-hulls here. You can see where two of them are going to be. In this engine bed area, we need water flowing for two separate things. One of them is going to be for our hybrid motor here for the cooling, and the other is going to be for our air conditioner, which will be running right back behind me. We could have used this Flowtech seatcock that we have used in other areas and then just split it off for each of these. We don't like to split them off. We prefer that each of them have their own intake, which is why we're going to go a different direction. The reason why we want two separate intake systems is because they will be running at very different times. Of course, with the electric motor, that's going to be out at sea, deeper water, clean water, and that needs to be kept free of silt. When we're going to be using the air conditioner, that's when we're just relaxing when we're in a harbor at anchor or potentially in a marina. So that's going to be running constantly, more likely to get silt in there, clog up the filter, and we definitely cannot have that for our electric motor. So we're just going to keep the two separate. In this area, we're using two Force-Bar Pro seatcocks. And then the glass work I was talking about is going to come from this, which we'll be doing exterior work on because we want to keep things flush. We have to make a little pocket to fit this in and then glass it into place. Once we start looking at everything down here, you can kind of see this line. And that is where a Vetus strainer is going to go, actually two, one on each side. And because this is the bilge of the boat, we have pushed them off to the sides as far as they can go because in the area in between here, we are going to have a bilge pump. What works out perfectly here is, got my little marker and I can actually go, let me get a better angle, and just put this right down the middle here and mark my spot there. Mark my spot there, and when I pull these off, I will know exactly where to drill my holes. All messed up, gonna line up my hole, give it a shot. Nice to do it out there. Went a little bit smoother than I thought, and a slight worry is that we had been right on top of the foam blocks that are supporting this catamaran from underneath. But luckily, all I see is light down there. There is the foam block I was talking about supporting our hulls, and you can see the first one that I drilled through and then the much second smaller hole. And what I've thought about is because I'm going to have to taper this piece anyway, and it is a much wider hole than what I was drilling there. So this is what I was starting with on the interior. Now I've switched to a bigger hole saw, which matches up with this. And I can drill that from the outside, tapering it into the inside, since we're going to have to make something this size anyway to plug it in.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
For the next steps of working with a thru-hull, this is where I come in. We're going to do some glass work here. What I've done since Jess was working on it is taper them out a bit, grind out the surface so it can decore it, get a nice bond in there. and then took the actual through hull itself, wrapped it in a couple layers of tape to add some thickness to it, so make sure when we put caulk on there, there's a little bit extra room in there, so that doesn't squeeze all of it out. And then wrapped it in some plastic tape. Going to wax the heck out of it. And then on these surfaces, you'll see once we end up putting this in, the glass will then go around there. It will have its taper in there and get bonded into place. Pop it off and we'll have a nice mold, which you can see it kind of held in there already, of where that's supposed to be. A tight space. Well, it's cured, and we'll see if I have enough wax on these little things. Alright, now below and see what they look like. And now you can see that recess in there. And that one, so it should be good. Clean them up and gives plenty of space then for any of the sealant that we're going to use to caulk this and make sure that it does not leak on us. But I'll go through, clean up this edge, blend that in a little bit better, and then I can fair it and prime it and get it ready for eventually someday when we put these in permanently. We're back in the forward lazarette, working on finally getting the conduit ran as to where our electrical is going to go and some of our plumbing. We had been waiting, finishing up the diagram, trying to figure out exactly how we were going to run everything. And some of the reasons for that, reason why we didn't do this previous, is because that whole hybrid system, once we got involved with that, it added some complexity to the electrical system, and we went through and rewrote the entire setup, the whole diagram.
And on the other side of it too is these bulkheads all the way around here are completely structural. They are very important to the strength and the stiffness of this boat through this area because it carries the mast load. The mast is right above us. That's going to be compressing, pressing down, and it's going to be torquing the hulls, so trying to twist the hulls. This needs to retain its stiffness, and we don't want to really compromise that. One of the things we did to add stiffness is we put these water tanks in here. So the wall here, the top and the bottom, are all acting as stiffeners to add some strength in here. The negative with that is it changed where our conduit's able to be ran. So where the wires are going, all those things. After a lot of thought, after a lot of going through and figuring it out, we've ended up with this plan. So electrical will be running through this conduit here, through or basically across the top. I wanted to be able to have access to the wires. So instead of running a hard pike through this area, just decided that I'm just going to run the wires separately along here. We have 110 volt, we have 48 volt, we have 12 volts that are going to be running through these. And then with that, we also have communications lines, or NEMA 2000 and some of the other like depth, those types of things are going to be running through here, which we want to make sure those are separated so we don't get any interference with those. And also things like the VHF line coming down from the mast itself, we need to make sure that we're not getting interference with that either. So trying to separate items that you see through here. If you remember, we were installing that Marine Breeze 48 volt system over on the port side to cool the salon, the deck area. Well, decided that now is the time to actually run those set up for the piping to be able to cool the salon a little bit better. What I did is, you can see there's a kind of a hard pipe here, which will feed the hose. We'll connect to that, feed into this one, and then that goes into the center, and we'll be able to cool closer to where I'm actually going to be sitting because I'm the one that's always overheating and I need the breeze to go directly on me. So that's for that. The other ones are going to be for the electrical. Plumbing, I haven't ran that because that's going to be forward of this and running this direction. These are the top, the Vitas plugs that go in the top of our tank. Lines will run from side to side across here. In the middle, so we'll go to this area. Now in the middle here, you'll see this is a wet area. We have the windlass, all the drains feed directly in here. So the chain will be in here, all kinds of wet things. So I wanted to make sure that the wire is not getting exposed at all. Those ran through hard pipes, and we'll go back and I'll show you how I ended up running those.
The first step was marking out and drilling the openings for our new fiberglass tubes. Using a 3 1/8 inch hole saw, Matt cut through the bulkheads that separate our forward lockers. We chose the placement carefully, keeping the holes as low as possible from the overhead and as far forward to bulkhead 5 as we could, so we didn't compromise any of the structural components in this area. All of our electrical wiring is going to pass through a flame retardant fiberglass tube, the same type that's normally used for exhaust systems. We went with fiberglass instead of a traditional conduit because it's rigid, fire resistant, and the inside surface stays smooth, which makes it easier to pull long wire runs without snagging. The tube has an outside diameter of 3 inches, and Matt specifically chose a thinner wall gauge to maximize the interior space for cables. The central wet locker spans about 36 inches, so we cut that main section of tube with a little extra length on each side so it could extend into the outer lockers.
Down the other rocks.
Oh,
Bam. So there we go.
now I need to, of course, fill that in. I'll bond it into place, remove this paint around here, and glass that actually on both sides, so we don't have to worry about that at all moving. Gonna be a nice strong area to be able to run electrical through this. The way that I'm planning on setting this up is I will run internal conduit through this piece of fiberglass, which will support a few of the 12 volt things that run through here and the 110 volt items that will run through here as well. Typically, you don't want them right next to each other. You want to have a little bit of space in between there, but running within their own conduit should be enough. And of course, they are wires that are already in a bundle anyway, so should be fine. We'll run it through there,
and then water will come through a different hole. Haven't drilled that yet. I'm still trying to decide. I think I can get away with a 1.5 inch hole since we're just using 1/2 inch pecks. I guess I'll decide that later on once I get this glassed in and see how everything else looks. We'll put, well, it's up there, but we'll put a little stub through here. That will be the connection for the air conditioner. Go here, and then it's a soft hose that goes up, and right about this section is where we'll have the vent come through. So it's gonna have to do a little bit of a 90 here to get onto that, but I think that's gonna work well for what we're trying to accomplish.
Before any bonding or glassing can happen, we needed to remove all the surrounding paint and take the surface back down to bare fiberglass. Luckily, this area never received much cosmetic attention to begin with. Just a quick pre-sand and a few coats of bilge paint, so Matt was able to clear it off easily with the angle grinder. The long 36-inch tube was then slid in from the port locker into the center locker and adjusted so it sat evenly between both openings. Using our Total Boat thickened resin, Matt squeezed generous amounts into the gap, filling the extra 1/8 of an inch around the hole to lock it into place. But in true MJ sailing fashion, the tube wasn't perfectly positioned during the first attempt. It had to be nudged forward a few inches, which meant cleaning out the initial resin and starting over. We really do like to do everything twice. Once it was sitting exactly where we wanted it, he repeated the same process in the center locker, packing in more of the thickened resin to fill and support any remaining gaps. After letting it sit for about an hour to get tacky, Matt added a smooth cove around the base of the tube to transition cleanly between the two materials. Finally, everything was tied together with layers of 12-ounce double bias fiberglass to create one solid structural bond. Now that the tube is fully bonded and glassed into the heart of our forward lockers, we've carved out a clean, protected passageway ready for the lifelines that will power the front of our boat. All that's left is choosing a distributor and waiting for the wire that will turn this empty channel into a working system.